Good afternoon and welcome to Webinar Wednesday. Today we are joined by Lucio Simoni, Engineering Manager at BC Group. Webinar Wednesday would like to thank our sponsor BC Group. BC Group International is a biomedical test equipment manufacturer and distributor for over 75 brands of products. BC Group's flagship brand is BC Biomedical. BC Group sells direct and through distributors both domestically and internationally. They provide equipment to medical device manufacturers, independent service companies, and hospital biomedical and clinical engineering departments. So for more information, please visit bcgroupstore.com. Now, just a reminder about our HTM mixer, which is being held at the Marriott Resort Griffin Gate in Lexington, Kentucky on November the 15th and 16th. Now, our mixers are a slightly modified, smaller, shorter duration and less crowded event than our MD Expos, but still provide valuable continuing education, networking and vendor engagement opportunities. So for more information and registration details, please visit htmmixer.com. Also, just a reminder to save the date for our Spring 2025 MD Expo, which will be held at the Pechanga Resort Casino in Temecula, California, April the 15th to the 17th. So please join us for 3 days of education, networking, and the latest advances in medical technology products and services. For more information and registration details, please visit mdexposhow.com. I'd also just quickly like to say congratulations to the finalists of our second annual Tech Choice Awards. TechNation is honoured to be part of these awards. They're 100% nominated by and voted by the HTM industry. All finalists have been contacted and voting is open online through January the 10th, 2025. So please visit onetechnation.com/Tech Choice Awards to vote for all categories. The winners will be announced in the March issue of TechNation. Okay, today's webinar, as usual, is eligible for 1 CE credit from the ACI, and you can obtain your CE certificate by completing the post-webinar survey, which will be emailed 1 hour after the completion of today's webinar. You must complete the survey to receive your 1 CE credit, and you'll be able to download the certificate directly from your computer once you've submitted the survey. If you have any questions, you can reach us at webinar@mdpublishing.com. Let's kick off today's webinar by giving away one of our great Webinar Wednesday 10th anniversary prizes. Today's prize is a $100 Amazon gift card. So using the questions feature on your dashboard, let me know the answer to the following trivia question. Now, BC Group, our sponsor today, is headquartered in Missouri, the birthplace of the author who wrote The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. What is the author's name? I'll reveal the answer and our winner at the end of the webinar. We'll be wrapping up today's presentation with a live Q&A, so please submit your questions anytime using the questions feature on the dashboard. As I mentioned earlier, our presenter today is Lucio. So Lucio, you may begin whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you very much. I'd just like to start by saying thank you to all of you for joining today, taking an hour out of your busy schedule to show a demonstration here. We're going to be demonstrating how to do patient monitor testing using our patient simulator. We have a NIBP-1040 shown here, and this is connected to our patient monitor. This one is a Philips IntelliView MP70. I've already got all the connections made just to take some of that time away set up, but we've got ECG connected, I've got invasive blood pressure, SpO2, and temperature all set up. Now I've got the cuff. Let's see if this can get in the camera here. So I've got the cuff wrapped around this plastic cylinder here, and that's just to reduce the volume in the cuff as we do the non-invasive blood pressure simulation. So over on my monitor, we can see our readings here. We've got 80 beats per minute on the ECG. We've got SpO2, which is coming from our FSX-1101. I'll show that here in a minute. We've got invasive blood pressure running, and we have no respiration. So that's interesting. We'll take a look at that here. We've got temperature displayed as 37 degrees. Now, it's really easy to change the selected settings. So all we have to do is press the select button, and we can see that now we'll have a pacer signal injected into our ECG. And we can change to adult high, adult low. All of the available NIBP simulations are right here through the select button. I'll go ahead and scroll back to the adult. And then if I want to change the temperature settings, I can just go into the setup menu here, and now we see temperature, so I can use the select button and quickly select the temperature that we're simulating. And we can see that when I hit enter, now we can see that update here on the monitor. Okay, so that's those simulations. Now, in order to run the NIBP, I'll go ahead and run that. It's going to run in the background, and it's inflating the cuff. We can see the pressure displayed on the screen here. Now, I don't know if you can hear it, but in the background I can hear the mechanism inside, the motor that's doing the blood pressure simulation. If we hit the down arrow, we'll change the screen that is selected. So now I can see what's actually happening in my simulation here. And as the monitor changes the pressure, the simulator will adjust its output accordingly and produce the output that we need for the monitor to read that. Now I have it set for 120 over 80, so I would expect my monitor to get 120 over 80. Now what happens is we have an algorithm inside our unit that says, you know, when the pressure reaches this point, produce a pulse of such amplitude. Now the monitor is also going to be looking at those pressure pulses that are coming back. They all have their own algorithm. So Philips is going to be different than Mindray, is going to be different than Welch Allen. So you'll see here on the settings on the screen, I have a systolic and a diastolic shift. What that allows me to do is tweak the algorithm, tweak the output from the NIBP to match the monitor that I'm testing. And so now we can see I get really close to my 120 over 80. Now, what I would want to make sure is that every Philips monitor, you know, I would always set it to the same settings when I use Philips, and I should always get 120 over 80. Now, if I go and test another brand, then I may need to change those settings to something else. Okay, so that's the offset setting, and it's running another simulation here. I mentioned the respiration. We've got nothing shown for respiration here. Now, some monitors measure off of the left arm, some measure off of the left leg. For this NIBP, we only have the option to, we have that simulation is in the left arm. So if we reverse, we can just reverse our leads here. And by reversing these leads, oh, I've also got this on a view that you can't see that. So what I've got, these are the ECG leads here. So this was the black one for left arm, and this is the white one for the right arm. So all I did was reverse these over here, and that puts the respiration signal in the correct lead so that the monitor can see that. And now we've got respiration visible on the screen. Now our patient simulator, the PS2240, 2200 series, that you can adjust which lead the respiration is in, whether it's in the left arm or the left leg. But the NIBP can't. So when we want our respiration to be simulated and measured, we have to make sure we connect the leads to the proper connection on there. Now the other thing I'll point out is the NIBP-1040. This has the extended lead connections on the side. So this allows me, you can kind of see the hole here. So I can either plug in a banana jack into that hole or the pin, or I can clip onto the side with my test snap there. So I mentioned the FSX-1101, so that's connected here. Now I do have the sync cable plugged in, and this allows me to get synchronized SpO2 with my ECG. And it looks like see if I can get my ECG to update here. I don't know why that's not behaving for me. Unfreeze. There we go. So now we've got our ECG waveform. and the SpO2 is synchronized with that. Now, if I were to disconnect that cable, I would still get an SpO2, but then the heart rate wouldn't be synchronized with the NIBP. So that's another simulation that we have there. I demonstrated the NIBP measurement. Right now it's on a 15-minute window. If we wanted to do adult high, we could just go in here. Now we could do a high and run that again. And it will automatically, the simulator is going to adjust and put out a simulation of 190 over 120 as selected in the screen here. And then we'll get that measurement on the monitor. Now I mentioned going up and down in the screens here. The third screen down, it shows me the pressure. It just shows a graph of where the pressure is, the history. And when this finishes, I'll show you the other screens that are available. Okay, so if I go down, now we get an ECG. This is where we can do our, we can see that the synchronization between the ECG and the SpO2. I can use a select button to change the rate. This is where I can do my performance testing, sine wave, square wave, triangle wave, and then also my arrhythmias. So the other thing we can see is when we're doing the arrhythmias, it will show that the IBP is also synchronized as well to those signals. So the arrhythmia also shows up in the IBP output. Okay, so that's ECG, and then we'll go back around here. Then we have our fetal maternal mode and cardiac output. So the important thing, the fetal maternal mode, it's not for testing. You know, it won't do a TOCO simulation, but what it does is it will simulate the IUP pressure. So we can do that on the IBP channel, and we get a superposition of the fetal and the maternal heart rates in the ECG. So when I run that, so now it shows that it's running, and we'll see the IBP pressure change as that contraction runs through the timing. Yeah, so the pressure will start to change, and then if we could separate the fetal and the maternal heart rate, we would see the heart rate change too. So this is just simulating a uniform deceleration contraction. So we get a pressure reading on the screen, and we can watch the pressure on the monitor as well. I'm going to go ahead and reset that. That takes a while to run. But let's take a look at cardiac output. So this is a feature here that we have. I'm going to go into my monitor and do a cardiac output test. But what I need to do for the cardiac output is connect this guy here. So this is our MCO 2100. It allows me to plug in the catheter. This is the connection that I would be my catheter. Plugs into this port here. The middle connection is the temperature of the bath or the solution that's being injected. That's plugged into this cable. This brings the two signals together and takes it back to your monitor. Some monitors have a single cable that goes directly to the monitor. Some of them have this little breakout box. So you just need to be mindful of which monitor you're testing. We do have different accessories and different cables for those. Now, when you're doing the cardiac output test, what we need to do is make sure that the configuration we have for the injectate, we need to make sure that the monitor reads the same temperature, and that's what is adjusted with this dial here. So as I turn this, the injectate temperature changes. So we want to make sure that the monitor is measuring the same temperature that we're simulating. We're simulating 0 degrees. So I'm going to adjust this knob until we get 0 degrees on the screen. And it's also going to show the blood blood pressure, blood temperature over here. So we're injecting ice water into the heart, and we're measuring the output. I'll press start here on the cardiac output and inject now. So I'll go ahead and do the injection, and we'll see that we're simulating that injection into the heart, which should provide a flow measurement when it's complete. And there we go. So it measured 2.55, and I had 2.5 set on the NIBP. And again, we can easily go in and adjust these using the select button and start a new test if we need to. Now, the important thing is this coefficient, the computational coefficient. That needs to match 0.542. That is in the user manual for the NIBP. But because if they use different catheters or different computation constants, it will change the results. So we want to make sure that the units, our simulation is configured for 0.542, so I need to make sure the monitor is also configured. And that's how we can do cardiac output. So that's all the main features on the NIBP. We also have other test modes. There was a natal mode. There's an alarm test where it will automatically cycle through alarms for testing alarms on the monitor. We can step through arrhythmia sequences. We can also do a leak test. It'll tell you how much the cuff pressure drops over time. And we also have a manometer mode just for measuring, getting pressure readings. Now, the other thing in here is this peak. So not all NIBPs have the peak feature, but that if I hit the reset, it'll reset the peak. That just gives you a readout of the peak pressure in the cuff as the non-invasive blood pressure simulation runs. So that's all of the main functions, features of the NIBP. If we want to change the SpO2 percentage, it's really easy to change on the FSX. We just click on the value that we want to change, and it'll cycle through those settings here. So, and also if we don't have this synchronized, I'll disconnect this sync cable. That'll restart the SpO2. And I'll show you that it's still possible to do these tests, but the now we have an independent setting for the sorry, we have an independent setting for the rate on the SpO2. So you'll see that it gets a rate of 60 beats per minute from SpO2, and it gets a rate of 80. Sorry, it gets a rate of 80 for the ECG. So some monitors can be confused by that. So that's where we provide this sync cable for the FSX if you want to synchronize the ECG there. It's also easy to select which brand that you're testing. Masimo, Nellcor, those are all available right here just by pressing on the screen. Okay, so the other thing I want to demonstrate is, this is how we can perform all this testing on our monitor. The other thing I didn't mention that I wanted to show is a lot of times when we connect the IBP cable, so I'm going to go ahead and reconnect this, a lot of times the monitor detects that cable detachment, and so it requires you to do a 0 on the monitor. So to do that, we go into the setup menu. This is also where we can select the shift for systolic and diastolic pressures. This is where we would go and do our 0 blood pressure. So I would go into the setup menu and have this set for 0. And I also need to make sure that the sensitivity is set correctly, because just like the respiration, the monitor is configured for a specific sensitivity of voltage to millimeters of mercury. And so the options are 5 and 40. So obviously if you don't have the right value set, then the monitor is going to get the wrong signal and it's going to measure the wrong invasive blood pressure. Now, the other thing is there's different cables. So sometimes the cable changes, whether it's 5 or 40. So a lot of things to be aware of and to be careful of to make sure we have the right configuration. And I'll scroll back through to the static. I'll just show you, we have quite a few static pressures available. So when you're testing your monitor, you can get a really good linearization test. And then we also have, for dynamic, we have quite a few dynamic waveforms that are available. And those were in the main screen, but this is all of our static pressures here. So to do the 0, that's where I came in here. So I came into the menu, set it to 0, and then on my monitor, all I have to do is tell it that I want to do a 0, and we're measuring the ABP, so I 0 ABP, and now it should 0 that reading, and then we can go out, and once we exit that menu, then we'll be back in the dynamic invasive blood pressure, and those readings should match. And so yeah, we're set to 190 over 120, and we got 192 over 120 on the monitor. Okay, so that is how to do all of the basic testing. What I'd like to do is spend a few minutes on how do we automate this testing, right? That's a lot of people are looking for that. How can I create a test sequence? How can I get a test report? How do I do this automatically? Because you're pushing a lot of buttons and moving a lot of screens. That's a lot to remember on the NIBP. So what I'm going to show you here is a Bluetooth connection to my phone that allows me to create a test sequence and automate this configuration and testing. So I've plugged in my Bluetooth adapter. Now, if I've got an older NIBP, this external adapter allows me to add Bluetooth without having to replace my NIBP to get that Bluetooth function. So that's a nice feature here of this series, and that also applies whether you've got a NIBP-1010 or all the way up to the 1040. Speaking of the different models, that's something I didn't explain earlier is, this one has 10 ECG leads, so I can silence the monitor because it's not happy with me. I can plug in, I can do a 3-lead simulation, I can do 5-lead, I can do 10-lead. On the 1020 through the 1040, I get that ECG option. On the 1010, we don't have ECG. So we add options as we go up in the models. And this 1040 just allows me to do everything. So that's why I'm using this model. But let's say if you don't have cardiac output, you don't need to pay for the cardiac output simulation in the 1040. You can go with a 1030 or 1020 even. So it's good to know what your requirements are and to select the model that best fits your needs. We're not going to force you to buy the most expensive one. Okay, so I showed the Bluetooth connection. Now, what I'm demonstrating here is in beta version. So if you would like to test this out, if you want to be involved in this evaluation, you can contact us and we can get you a login and be able to test this. Shown on the screen here on the left is this is our app for the phone. It's called myBC Mobile, and it allows me to select. I can select the asset that I'm testing. All of the test data is tied to an asset, so we've got a database with all of the assets in it. And so what we can do is we start by scanning. I just happen to have a barcode on the front of this guy, so I'm going to scan that little QR code down at the bottom here, if it's going to cooperate. It's funny, this worked plenty of times before, but then when I want to show it off. Okay, so I was able to scan that barcode, and it found the asset in the database, and it says, this is the one that I found. Is that really what you want to test? It's tied to a test sequence, so we've already got this configuration of what we want to do, what steps need to be done to test this monitor. And I'll say, yes, let's run that sequence. And, so this next screen, it's showing AIMS configuration. This allows me to export my test data to my CMMS system, but that's a whole nother video. I'm going to skip that. And so now we have, it's going to show the test equipment that we're using. So it is an NIBP-1040. There's the firmware. What I'd like to do is add into my report the actual serial number that's being used. So this would be saved in my configuration, and then it's also going to allow me to enter the calibration date. So let's say this was, 2024, September 20th, and it's going to be due on September 20th of 2025. Okay, so now I can add in more information if I want, who it's assigned to, that sort of thing. But that will all be saved in my test record once it's complete. So I can hide that test equipment. Now this is showing all of the steps that I'm going to do. It's just a preview. So yep, that is the test that I want to run, and it's going to now configure the NIBP for the mode that I have selected. So we can see here it's set for adult mode, normal. Here's the shifts that are configured. So I didn't have to do anything to the NIBP. I don't have to know how to get into the menus and set all those things. Everything is set through the Bluetooth. All I have to do is start my simulation. And we can see on the screen here, it's showing the pressure that's reading. That's live from the NIBP itself. So as it runs here, it'll get a measurement. Now the NIBP doesn't have any connection to the monitor itself, so there's no way for it to get these measurements from the monitor. So I do have to enter these numbers manually, just because there's no way to automatically read that. So we'll let the simulation run. Now, we also saw that my last pressure was 187. It was the 190 over 120. So a lot of times what can happen as we're shifting from adult high to adult low, it can get a little confused. It takes it a little longer to run the simulation. So we've got 117 over 79. So I'll go ahead and put that in here. And our mean was 87. Those passed. Now what you'll see as I enter the numbers, this test was already configured for me. So it already knew what measurements are expected and what are the limits, right? So I would enter those limits based on the service manual for the monitor that I'm testing. And then once I enter those values, then it would automatically do that for me. So we're going to go, and the next one will be adult high. And so now the monitor's searching again. It's taking a little bit longer just because I went from 120 over 80 to 190 over 120. The other thing I didn't mention here, the phone that I'm using is a Android over 116, 133. The app that we have, it also it's configured, it's compatible with Apple or Android, this myBC Mobile. So now it's set adult low, 80 over 40. So we'll go ahead and run that. But you can see it's guiding me through this whole process of testing. I don't have to remember, oh, did I do the high? Did I do the low? I have to walk through the whole procedure and complete everything in order to get a passed, a completed test at the end. The other thing I can do in the again, this is probably a whole nother video, but when I set up this test sequence, I can put in a picture of the connections, right? So maybe I want to show how everything is plugged in, what cable do I use, that sort of thing. That can be tied to this test sequence and displayed on the screen here as I'm running this test. And some monitors they increase the pressure and then drop it and take measurements as the pressure drops. Some monitors take a reading as the pressure rises, so it just goes up once, and the NIBP series is compatible with either method um, of measurement from the monitor. Oops, 49. There we go. Okay, so that's all of our um, non-invasive blood pressure. So we want 80% SpO2. So I'll set this to, it's set to 80, and we got a reading of 81. So that's good. That passes. Now we can go on and do ECG. So we can see the screen here changed to ECG mode. It's selected 120 beats per minute. That's based on this configuration that was done for the test sequence. 120 on the monitor. It's doing great. And then it's going to drop down to 30. So we got 30 beats per minute. And we can see again, now the SpO2 and the ECG are considerably different because I'm not using that sync cable anymore. So then we have 30 beats per minute, and that's a pass. And then we're going to do, this is IBP, invasive blood pressure. So we've got, it's in the setup menu, so I can do my 0. So I did my 0, and we'll go out of the setup menu. And we should get 120 over 80. $119 over 80. And 87. Now my temperature was connected to the cardiac output box. So I'll disconnect that. And I'll connect the cable for the temperature. 37 degrees. It's looking good. Cardiac output. Now we can go back and rehook up our cardiac output. And it's ready for measurement. I'll start that, and I'll hit start on the test here on the phone. And now the test is running. Well, it says it's ready for a new measurement. There we go. I'll reset that. And then I'll put in our cardiac output measurement. 2.77, it was confused. It wants me to wait, but in the interest of time, we'll just do the 255 that we got before. And we'll finish up that sequence. It shows the overall result passed, and it's now uploading those results. And it's saving that to our cloud server to where we'll be able to see those test results. This is our myBC Exchange which is what myBC Mobile synchronizes to, sends all the data, and once this is complete, then oh, maybe I didn't hit submit. Once I submit that data, then it'll go up and be stored up here in our tested sequence. This allows it. This is where we can create test sequences. So these are all the tests that we have. We can view our assets, keep track of the users, that sort of thing, and all of our test results as well. It's like waiting for water to boil. It always takes longer when you're watching it, trying to complete the upload. But the summary screen will go away and it'll go back to the test screen when it's done. But I can show you what this test data will look like. Here's another one, the Philips IntelliView. This is the test result here. So we get a nice PDF report that we can attach. We can print this out. We get a one-page summary showing the equipment that was used for the test. When was the calibration due? What were the individual steps that were performed, whether they passed or failed. So that's all of the data that we would need to show that we performed all this testing on our monitor. So with that in mind, that is basically we've tested all the modalities on the monitor, ECG, SpO2, IBP, temperature, cardiac output. We've demonstrated two different ways to do that, one with the NIBP manually testing, and then also with automation and adding in Bluetooth and test sequences and test reports, that sort of thing. So at this point, I'd just like to open the floor. If you have any questions, or I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, great. We've got a few that have come in actually. So the first one is, my monitor doesn't have all of those features. Does this simulator work for all monitors?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question because, yeah, like I said, not everybody's going to have cardiac output. You may not have invasive blood pressure, that sort of thing. This will work. So the NIBP-1040 itself would work for all those monitors. You would only, if you have a 3-lead ECG, you would hook up 3 leads or 5 or 10. Now, I will say that some monitors, the analytic monitors that are doing like EKG analytics and doing the normal sinus rhythm and reporting issues with your ECG, it may not like this simulation from this monitor because this is basically our simple ECG. We have a single ECG output that's sent to all the leads. You would need like a patient sim 2240 for an analytical EKG. But for all the other patient monitors like this one, or 3-lead, 5-lead, or if you don't have ECG, we have models of the NIBP that are available that don't have ECG. So basically, yes, the NIBP series will work for basically any patient monitor that you might have.
Perfect. So how critical is the tube that the cuff is wrapped around?
Oh, yeah, I didn't go into those details. I kind of briefly mentioned that it's wrapped around this cuff. So I've just got this plastic cylinder here that the cuff is wrapped around. Now, the significance of that is if I were to remove this cylinder, then you can see obviously there's a big volume here, and the monitor is going to have to fill this whole volume with air in order to get any pressure. If you roll this up and wrap something around it, that would also reduce the volume. But you could use a water bottle, or any firm cylinder would work fine for reducing that volume in the cuff. And really what's happening is the monitor is looking for a pressure signal that would be coming typically from your arm. So if you think about, you want an arm-sized cylinder there. So if that cylinder isn't there, then it's trying to fill that bladder, the cuff, with air, and you've got a whole lot of volume of air in there. Well, inside here, there's a fixed volume that we saw the motor screen, our pulses that we're simulating. That's a fixed volume that we're simulating to simulate a heartbeat. So if there's a really large volume of air in this cuff and a relatively small volume in here, the monitor's not going to see much of a signal. And so it's going to be hard for it to get that reading. But when you wrap it around something that's firm, then that gives it a good consistent measurement. So the exact object doesn't really matter. You want it to be about arm-sized.
Yeah, just got a question that's just come in. It's MP70 has no integrated parameters. The MS does, however. So were you verifying its parameters? Sorry.
I'm assuming you're referring to getting the readings from the monitor. As far as I know, we don't have any. If we had the communication protocol, if we knew how to get the readings out of the monitor, that'd be great. We'd love to do that. But to this date, we don't know what that communication interface is in order to get those readings. So if that's defined somewhere, I'd love to put that into here so that we could, get those readings and fully automate the test.
Okay, another question that just popped up. How can I get the driver for the app?
Oh, so that's available on. So we have a published version. It's available on the Google. What is it? Google Play. Anyway, the Android store and then also the Apple store. So if you search for myBC Mobile, you'll find it in both of those. As far as this beta version that I was showing, just contact me and we'll be able to get you onto that. We call it a test flight, but we'll be able to get you into that testing program.
Perfect. I've got a couple of questions about the battery now.
Oh.
Does the NIBP-1040 come with a battery, and how long does it last?
Oh, good questions. So the 1040 does. So the battery is built in. It's always there. Actually, if we go through all the screens, the last one is a battery meter. So it really depends on the version that you buy. I forget how much of an add the battery pack is, but let's say it's a couple $100. Well, if you don't need the battery, why pay for it? Along those lines, if your model does have a battery, you can run these NIBP simulations that we were doing. We know we can run at least 500 of those simulations on a single charge. So that's a whole lot of testing.
Okay, perfect. Okay, our attendee has come back with another question. She tried to use the published version, but it doesn't connect. What about the driver for the app?
Correct. So that's where contact me, and we'll be able to get you onto the in the beta test.
Okay. Do you want to give everybody your email address?
Yeah, it's L. If I type it in there, I think it'll work. I had assumed that my information was in. I apologize. I thought that was already out there. Did that work?
No. So I can send out the.
Oh.
I can send it out to everyone. Don't worry.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, I see. There's a different chat. Anyway.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Don't worry. I will send out your email address.
Okay.
The MP70 guy has come back and says the MP70 is more of a display, and the PM report you created doesn't include the MMS or modules attached.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's a good point. So the modules that I have, I don't have this. Maybe I can show this what we're referring to here is this module back here. So these are what's actually plugged in. These are all the cables that we have for ECG, SpO2. So these are actually what's being tested. So that's a good point. So what I would do is I scanned when I did at least for the application, I scanned the barcode on the front. What I would want to do is put an identifier on these guys, and that would allow me to put in the let me go back here. That would allow me to put in the device that that I'm testing. So up here, it shows the asset serial number and all that. I could put the information in for these modules rather than the monitor itself. So yeah, good question.
Perfect. And before we wrap up today, Lucio, is there any top tips you'd like to give or any summary?
That's a good question. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm sure if anybody's got any more questions or anything, please email Lucio directly, and he will be very happy to help you.
Absolutely.
So we'll wrap up now, Lucio. So thank you so much for a great and informative presentation. I'd like to encourage everyone to visit BC Group's website to learn more about the products and services they provide for the industry. So please visit bcgroupstore.com. As promised, the answer to today's trivia question is Mark Twain. So congratulations to our winner, Oliver Toft in Georgia. Just a quick reminder, you can obtain your CE certificate by completing the post-webinar survey, which will be emailed 1 hour after the completion of today's webinar. You must complete the survey to receive your 1 CE credit from the ACI, and you'll be able to download the certificate directly from your computer once the survey is submitted. If you have any questions, you can reach us at webinar@ndpublishing.com. Now, if you've missed any of our past webinars, including any by BC Group, please visit webinarwednesday.live to view our whole webinar archive. We'll be back next week with another webinar, so please visit webinarwednesday.live for more details and complimentary registration. Thank you all once again for your time today, and I hope you'll enjoy the rest of your day.